Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. This is Halstead at Qdabra, and today I'm going to follow on a presentation that Hillary gave last week. We are going to continue talking about parent-child lists. So this is take 2, and hopefully everyone can hear me okay. If you can hear me, please change your feedback to purple, and we'll know that we have liftoff here. We are recording the webinar, so if you miss something, you'll be able to go to our YouTube site afterwards and take a look. Okay, so today we're changing the deck a little bit here. I wanted to review the goals of this webinar. We do this webinar every Thursday, and it's for you and it's free. And here are a few goals we have. We want to make sure that the webinar is relevant. You know, everyone out there is in over their head in SharePoint, and they're hitting their head against the wall, or whatever it is. There's some metaphor there. And we're trying to find techniques to help you tunnel through that wall, get to the promised land of SharePoint. We also realize that you don't have a lot of time on your Thursday mornings, so we're shooting for 20 minutes max, just to distill the spirits. We're not doing how-tos for an hour, showing you step by step how to do stuff. We're giving you the overview, and it's not smoke and mirrors. It's for real. Demos are live. Sometimes they don't work quite as well as we want. So just kind of a quick overview here of what we're doing. We are also providing links and samples so that you can go in after the fact and take the learning to the next level and actually go through the steps to do what you saw us do. Today, we're talking about solutions in SharePoint. A lot of people are using SharePoint today. They go to SharePoint, and let me just go back to showing you my SharePoint list here. We're using the Northwind database again, like we did last week, and specifically, we have a database that has customers and orders in it, and a bunch of other things. You can see here the lists on the left, categories, customers, and so forth. So we've got a list. And we've got multiple lists, and we want to make a nice web page that will allow us to interact with this list without having to open individual list items. And why is that? Well, with SharePoint today, most of your solutions, we'll talk about this in a second, most of your solutions are not simple lists. They're not single libraries. They're not just webpart pages. They're actually going to be a collection of those things. So you're going to be building some kind of an application on SharePoint to automate your business process. How are you going to do that? Well, you're not going to go to SharePoint and click on Customize Form, because that supposes a single list, and it's not going to scale to most of the scenarios out there today. Now, this is a very tempting option here. Customizing the list with InfoPath to make it look good is very tempting. But there are a number of gotchas, and that's why we're talking to you today. So specifically, the real-world scenarios that you have, once again, are not going to be out-of-the-box surveys. They're not going to be things that you just get from SharePoint. You're going to have to create something using these pieces. And very simple example, 2 lists that are connected. So there's lots of solutions out there today that need to have multiple lists. And here's one example, customers and orders. Actually, there's potentially 3 lists. There's customers, orders, and the details for each order. So when you have multiple lists, how do you create a nice presence so you can edit this data? Last week, Hillary showed a technique to do this, and Hillary and Mel, I want to thank them because they were able to push this further, and I'm presenting for them this week. But they were able to actually take the solution last week to a new level, and that's what I'm going to show. But to refresh ourselves here, we're trying to edit the customers and the orders and their details in one page, and that's and we go to one page in SharePoint, and we have the ability to interact with those 3 different lists. That's the goal here. Now it's challenging to do this in SharePoint, and the reason being that there's, well, we'll show you here. The first example. So last week, the first example we showed you was you've got this list now. And let me just go to another screen here. You're going to see a bunch of things jump out at you. Just ignore them for a second. Okay, so here we have a list. Here's our orders right here. And, sorry, I have a new feature here enabled for you. And it's called Zoom It. And I want to, okay, so we're back to our orders. So just ignore those pages in between here we've got, and that's the Zoom It's not working this morning. Okay, so we'll just ignore Zoom It for now, and we will switch back to where we were. We've got, okay, so once again, we're at the orders. And this is what we showed you last week. And you've got a list here, and the list can be modified so that when you click on one item, you get the parent on top, that's the order, Stephen Buchanan, federal shipping, and on the bottom you get the details. And you can of course add new items to this and edit them in place here. And so you get this other pop-up, and you can add a new item and interact with it this way here. Slow, as you can see. Let's just see here. Are we getting any love here from SharePoint this morning? Unit price, okay. So we'll just add in here. I'll note that the unit price is not automatically filled in. And okay, so we've added that one item there to the bottom here. So we showed you this approach last week. Now, this is an approach that is currently being offered up on the internet, and it's being, it's a technique that people are talking about. And this technique, if I go to the right site here, it was documented by the SharePoint Hillbilly on January 19th this year. And one of our good friends in New Zealand, Ingeborg, she goes by the code name Talon, she actually suggested this site. She's an Excel MVP, and she's getting involved with InfoPath, and she suggested, she had an issue. She said, well, I've got these two things I want to edit, and the best thing I've been able to find online is the Hillbilly site. So we thought to ourselves, wow, maybe this is the end of InfoPath. Maybe what we should do is take a look. So we did, and this is what we got. So we went through the Hillbillies article. We're going to send you the link to that. You can do the same thing. We went through it, we did it, and this is what we ended up with. We ended up with a parent-child editor that's in a single page, and it's not super nice. I mean, it's got this created by stuff here. It's kind of it's single format here. It's not editable. Now you could go in using the same jQuery technique, and you could even make it better, but it's a lot of work. And so let me just quickly switch back to our deck here and kind of go over this technique here. So in summary, yes, you can take SharePoint Designer and jQuery, just like the Hillbilly says. You can modify your master customer list to include a pop-up that gives you orders, the ability to edit orders, and the details behind them. Okay, so it's relatively straightforward. I mean, you do need to cut and paste some code, but he tells you how to do it, or she tells you how to do it. I don't know if the Hillbilly is a gal or a guy. But the problem is it's just plain ugly. And it's clunky because jQuery refreshes a lot. As you saw, it's slow as well. And you can't create data connections to populate the price, things like that. It's just not a happy situation. Okay, so then last week we showed you another technique. And this is using just out-of-the-box webpart mashup. So let's take a look at this if I can find this here. Got too many windows open. Okay, so where's the, okay, I have the link. So here's the Northland database. Let me just go to my link. No, I lost my link now. I've got it in my presentation. So one second. Okay, so I'm just pasting this link to this mashup page into my browser, and we'll take a look at this again. Now, this approach is just, once again, it's just stock SharePoint. It's actually less work than the jQuery, less work than the SharePoint Designer. You just take basically your list, which is on top here. You add a web part to your page, which points to that list. Not hard to do. Then you connect that web part. You add a web part below, which is for your order details. And this can be customized in InfoPath. You see we've done that. And then you connect them using this just standard web part connector. And so let's just take a look at this here. We're just going to pick one of these, Laura Callahan at the bottom. And you can see that once I select hers, it of course updates the details down below. Now you did see a refresh there. Okay, so we can go in, we can add an item here. And notice that this one is actually getting unit price automatically, so that's kind of nice. And submit it. It updates the data. We can switch to Andrew Fuller, switch back to Laura, and see that the data indeed was correctly stored. Okay, so this is a nice technique, very easy to do, but what do you think? I mean, you saw the refresh. It is clunky, to use a technical term. It's clunky, and you can't add parent data. And you're going to do this for one form, and you're going to have to redo it for the next one, and so on. So we actually documented this technique. We have this as part of our training, and it's on our YouTube site. Got a link there. When you send us your contact info, we'll send you out this deck, and you can go there and you can take a look at Anson's video presentation. It shows you exactly how to do it. Okay, so then the next technique, and this is the final one, is, well, what about InfoPath? Right, so we talked about using SharePoint Designer and web parts to create pages that allow you to order and to edit customer order detail information. There's a third technique, and this is what we're proposing to you, and that is to use InfoPath. Okay, so here's a screenshot. Let me show you this page that I have, and you've seen it here before because I've been switching to it. So here's a page, right? And this is a web part. We have InfoPath web part right here, right? So let's go in here and let's pick, I think I have added our company in here. Now the web part is going to dynamically hit the server. It's going to refresh the information. I've got a button here that allows me to edit the details. You could have it so that the drop-down automatically queries the server and fills in the data. I actually have this button here. I kind of like the button because it allows me to, well, you probably don't want it. I don't know why I like it, but I do. Okay, so I've been able to find my customer, quickly go find the order. If I have multiple orders, I can do that. I can go in here and edit my order, click on details. I can add an item to my order. And you can kind of see here that I have 900 pounds of tofu, or whatever that is. But we'll give ourselves a 99% discount. Okay, so we're going to save it, and it's hitting the server, it's saving it back. And now I can go in here and I can edit the customer. I can add a new customer. I can edit the order. And notice when I do it, it's relatively fast. There's no huge refresh. I've got my help here. I can quickly show my help. Here's how you edit the form. Okay, folks, if you ever have any questions, here's how you do it. And when I do this, it's not refreshing the entire web page, right? So I can go in here and I can add a new order. And of course, I need to type in a number. The order should be automatically filling in. Okay, so we'll just add the customer should automatically fill in too. We didn't set that up. Very easy to do though, if you want to. And we'll add an order. And you saw Hillary do this last week. The form didn't look quite as good last week, you might remember. We have made some changes to it, and Hillary and Mel, our two InfoPath goddesses, have actually gone in and done the dirty work for me here, or the actually pretty work in this case. So I'm going to add in some information here. See, I've already done this. So I'm just going to quickly add my information and hit save. Now when I do that, and I can go to my details and create the new order. So I'll do that. And once again, you don't necessarily need these buttons here. So we'll add a product here. And we'll add, well, we love tofu. So we'll add, well, this time we're going to go for 500 pounds. And we'll give ourselves a 50% discount. Okay, and we'll save it out here. And then we'll go back and I'll show you that if I refresh the customer, the data is still there. And so going back to the customer, we can click on Tom's specialized something or other. It's in German. I can't read it. And notice that Tom has a bunch of orders here, none of which correspond to Qdabra's orders. They're all different. We can look these up. Okay, so let's go back to Qdabra. And we'll get the details. Now we've got these two orders, the one we just entered and the one from yesterday. So click on this one, we should be able to see the details. There it is. And there's our tofu. Okay, so what did I just show you? I just showed you a third approach to edit multiple lists using an InfoPath webpart with a nice form inside. So let's take a look at the pros and cons. Okay, so the technique is InfoPath. You can link these with multiple lists. You need to use Q rules to do it, and add some rules. There's some configuration. This document goes through the specific steps to set it up. Many of you may have already done this. The pros, well, it looks really good. Partial refresh. You can edit the parent. No code involved. Don't need to worry about SharePoint Designer. Don't need to worry about jQuery. Requires Q rules. That's the big con. If you have Q rules, not a big deal. If you don't, you need to get a trial from us, and then at some point, if you think it makes solves your issue, then you can purchase it. And there's a little bit of work to configure, about the same as probably the first approach, the SharePoint Designer plus jQuery. But the nice thing here is that you can actually reuse that technique, and we have customers out there who have done just that. They've taken Q rules and they've used it to create InfoPath forms that edit multiple lists. And they've taken that and they've done it for one solution, and then for another one, and then for another one. So that's really the gist of my presentation today. You can learn more. We have changed our policy. We're not asking for people to tweet us or to go to our pinpoint site. That didn't quite work. So what we're doing is we're asking people to simply go to our website, fill in their contact us details, and say, I want the webinar. What we're going to do in the future is we're going to change the category here to say webinar with the date, maybe. Or maybe we'll have a separate drop down. So you can go in and specify exactly which webinar you want the contents for. And just make sure you fill out and give us a valid email address and a valid phone number. And we'll send you the samples. So that's what you do, is just go to our Qdabra site, click on consulting, click on contact us, and we'll send you the goodies. Next week, what we're going to talk about is using Visio as a dashboard on SharePoint on top of multiple lists. So we're going to show you a technique using Visio with graphics to drill down on the list data. And then, of course, use InfoPath to edit the multiple list data. Okay, so that's just a quick preview. We're kind of excited because Visio web services allow you to create essentially these dashboards with graphics on them. You can click on the graphics, drill down into the list, right? So if you have a sales pipeline, for example, you have a bunch of customers that you're trying to qualify, you can have those in a separate list. When they move to the next step, which is, I don't know, closing or something like that, then you can have them move from one icon to the other, and basically you can show the updates with the numbers of people, the number of customers in each state. Anyway, it's pretty cool, and I'm sorry I can't show you more right now, but we look forward to presenting that next week. I do have some time for questions, and I noticed there is one question from Ralph. Yeah, great question. So his question here is, how do you keep the integrity of the parent-child list? Now, this is something that is really important, because in the SharePoint Designer technique on the Hillbilly site, they don't really talk about this. Let's see here, where am I? I guess I'm just going to go to the SharePoint Designer site, the Hillbilly site. Yeah, so Hillbilly doesn't really talk about how you do the integrity, but what you have to do, in a nutshell, is you have to make sure you're using an ID. And that's the one challenge with the Hillbilly site, and that's one of the reasons why you can't get a parent so easily, because you can't pass, you can't sort of open the parent from the child, because there's no way to pass the ID. In the second case, with the mashup, what we're doing is we're still using IDs, but the webpart connector gives us a link. So it's really, when we say that, we already have the ID in the form, because the webpart connector passes the ID from the top list to the actual form. Okay. In the third technique, we keep the referential integrity using an ID in the form, and you have to have a special field that you're setting the ID to. And you have to make sure that that ID round trips when you save the data. So in a nutshell, we're using IDs to keep the referential integrity. Essentially, they're keys, right? These IDs keep the integrity. In the first technique, Hillbilly doesn't really talk about it. So if you really want to use the Hillbilly approach, let us know and we'll help you with the ID stuff. Just go to the forum, say, hey, I listened to the webinar, I want to do this, but I can't figure this out. And we figured it out for you. We'll show you how to do that. We'll also send you the samples. In the second approach with webpart mashup, it's really easy to do it. In the third approach, there's some configuration required. But yes, indeed, we are using IDs, and it is keeping the integrity. Hopefully that answered your question. And I just don't have enough time to go through and show you exactly how we did it, but we'll have more content out there that you can set through and look at it. Another question from Jania. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly here. Is the InfoPath webpart new? No, the InfoPath webpart has been out since 2007. When does it make sense to use the webpart, when not? Well, I would challenge everyone today to think about InfoPath as a web page tool. Okay, in other words, InfoPath isn't just a data capture collection tool, right? It's not just a form tool for SharePoint. InfoPath can be used to create web pages. How? Well, InfoPath comes with form services. In 2007, Microsoft released the InfoPath Form Services, which is the browser support for InfoPath forms. That means that you can create a form, publish it to SharePoint, and your users don't have to have InfoPath installed. They can just run from the browser. They can run from the web part. You can then, what you can do is you can take your InfoPath form, you can create really nice looking pages in InfoPath, right? And you saw our example. Our example was this, not this one, not that one, this one here. You can see here, look at this example here. And if I had zoom in, I could really nicely show you the detail here, but zoom, it's dead right now, so we'll just show you here with my cursor. On the left, you see this bezel, got a kind of a three-dimensional bezel there. You can't do that as easily in SharePoint Designer. I mean, I suppose you could, but the amount of effort involved to make your SharePoint Designer page look as good as this InfoPath page, I mean, we did this in a couple hours, right? And you know, it's a pretty complex form. You know, it's got nice help, it's got tabs on top, you know, it's got some goodies, right? And it looks good, right? It's got a nice logo at the bottom, a little footer, action, whatever. In SharePoint Designer, you know, most people won't be able to figure that out. And, you know, it's going to take a long time. You say, well, Patrick, I can't figure this out. In InfoPath either. Well, you don't have to. You just take our sample that we give you and you just reuse it, right? You just fill in, instead of using customer order, you fill in your data here in the middle. You get along with it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. So when you use the web part, well, you're going to use a web part for any web page where you have an InfoPath form on the web page. You want people to fill out the form without having to open InfoPath. You'll use the InfoPath Form Services, the browser. And the web part's nice because whenever you're dealing with web forms, in this case, an InfoPath form, that's not part of that page. In other words, you're not opening it from the library, you're opening it from a page, you're going to use the web part. So to reiterate, the web part, InfoPath web part is used whenever you're using InfoPath on a page that's not a form library. Okay, and that's the majority of cases. And you have content types. Content types are InfoPath forms that you publish to SharePoint, and they're not tied to a single form library. Content types really require these web parts when you put them on a home page. So whenever you're creating a dashboard, a home page, someplace for your people to go to capture their data, and you've got multiple lists that you're dealing with, you're not going to be using a form library. You can't. You're going to be using a web part or more than one. Hopefully that answers your question. Great questions. Thank you very much for those. I am available for a couple more questions. We'll take one more question if someone's got one. Here we go. Ralph's got another question. Well, maybe not. We do have one more question here for people, and we are available, of course, in the forum for you for free. Once again, just to go back to the presentation here, if you want to get the content and the presentation, you can go to this site, type in your details, and put in the message title, webinar samples, and please send whatever, and let us know, if you like the webinar or not. If you did like the webinar, please change your feedback to blue. We are trying to do these in a very concise fashion, give you a glimpse of something that might help you tunnel through that wall that is SharePoint. We look forward to having you next week. We do have that third question coming in just right on time. Well, Ralph, I guess you're trying to write something here, and I'm just maybe catching you too early. But yeah, I will answer one more question, and if there is none, we'll close up here in a few minutes. Once again, just want to thank everyone for coming, and we hope to have you back here next week. We'll be talking about how to use Visio as a dashboard on top of those lists with InfoPath under the covers. Once again, thanks a lot for joining us, and it's been a pleasure to present to you. I'll see you again next week.